Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make the desktop. I want it to be 1.5 inches thick, but 2x4s have a little bit of a radius on there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this to 3¼ inches. I'm going to cut off 1/4 inch on one side, flip it around, set it to 3, cut off 1/4 inch on the other side. That way we'll have a nice straight edge, and then we'll glue it up. And while it's gluing and the glue is drying, I can work on some other parts. So let's get cutting. Okay, with our pieces all cut to width, I went through and I laid it out to try to make sure that the nicest looking side was facing up. I also put a little scrap here, that way as we tighten our clamps down, we are not going to be smashing and kind of destroying the edge of the desk. So I'll put some glue on here. I've got a little piece of scrap wood I'm going to use to kind of smooth out the glue. We'll get this glued up. And while it's gluing, we will trim some boards down and plane them. Okay, well this is all glued up. We're going to let the glue dry. When the glue is dry, then we will flatten off the top and route the edges. Okay, with the table gluing up, I am going to plane down these. This is part of the shelf, and just a regular 2x12 and the 2x are a little too thick, so I'm going to plane it down by 1/2 inch so it's 1 inch thick, just so it looks a little bit better, and we can also get all this junk off of there. So let's get the planing. Well, those are all planed down to 1 inch thick. So now I can work on assembling the drawers. And don't forget to save all your wood shavings. Those are great for the browns in your compost or for animal bedding. Okay, now I'm going to cut the shelves that are going to be on the desk. I need them to be, let's see here, 1'5", so that's 17 inches. So if you haven't seen a compound miter saw like this, you have this, which you can pull up and push this over. It's set at 17. So I'll square up the corner, and then I can push it right up here and we'll cut it right at 17. Okay, it's time to glue the desk shelves together. So I've already cut some biscuits in here. And if you don't know what a biscuit is, it's this thing. It's a little football-shaped piece of wood, and it helps with kind of the shear force on stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and glue this up, and we will get this assembled. Okay, tighten this one down. And our glue ups are done. We're going to let this sit until it's cured. Then we'll sand it off and the shelves will be ready. And next we're going to move on and do some sanding. Okay, we have our top sanded. So now it's ready to square up the ends, and then we're going to route the top. So I like to clamp down a straight edge. That gives me a straight line because I don't have a really long chop saw. And now I can take this off. We'll route our ends. We'll put a little bit of a radius on there. That'll help in case we're banging against it. We won't have a sharp edge. Okay, This is nice and smooth off. I've already done about 100 grit sandpaper on it, so now I'm going to do a finish sanding to about 150 grit. Then this will be ready for varnishing. Okay, before I finish sand the shelves, I want to make sure that I drill the holes so the pipe can go through. So what I've done is your studs are spaced at 16 inches on center. So I've gone 32 inches, made a line, and I've marked where I kind of want my holes to be. That way I can hit the most studs that I can. So having this lined up, it's equal on both sides. I'll mark around here, and then we'll drill the holes. Okay, with everything finished sanded, it's now time to varnish. So I'm not really too worried about too much getting in there. What I'm trying to do now is put in a really heavy coat of varnish, and that is going to soak into the wood. It's going to seal the wood, and then we're going to do a nice finish coat later. But now is when we're going to get to see the colors kind of really start to pop. So we'll get this on, and we'll let it dry, and while that's doing its thing and drying, we will work more on the pipes. Okay, I've gone through and I've dry fit everything. Now what I want to do is I want to put some thread lock on there, and I want to tighten everything down to make sure it's secure. That way nothing will come loose. But first I want to make sure everything fit together and it worked. So let's get to that. Okay, we have these all reassembled with Loctite. And one thing I didn't say was I did not put Loctite on these pieces here, or these ones, because I want this to be able to turn in case I need a little bit of adjustment. And these we need to leave out and not have Loctite on there because we'll have to slide in our shells. But other than that, it's done. Also, in here I have some our fasteners we're going to use sitting in acetone just to clean them off, because what we're going to want to do is clean it off with acetone, make sure all the oil is off, so that when we go to spray paint it, the spray paint can adhere and there's no oil to make it not stick. So I'll get to going on this. Okay, all my pieces and parts have been cleaned with acetone. Now I got to clean all the steel, get all the oil off of the pipes, and just take off any rust that might be on there. Then we'll be ready to paint. So let's get to cleaning the steel. Okay, we have everything cleaned and ready to go. So we're going to put a primer on it first. That's going to help the paint to stick to the steel. And then we're going to paint it black afterwards. So this is just our primer. Should dry in about 20 minutes or so, and then we'll add another coat. Okay, and our painting is done. We'll let this dry, and then when we're done varnishing, we can put it all together. Okay, with our pieces painted and this sanded and varnished, it's now time to assemble. Assembly is very easy because it's just pipe. We'll just thread this through here. Gotta be careful not to scratch the paint. And when this is through, we'll just screw it back together. Okay, I have our base all aligned, and so now we're going to use these screws and put it in. All right, let's install our last shelf on this side. So if you notice, I have made a little notches. That is to get around the little lip here on the pipe fittings. So I'll just slide it in, and like everything, it's easier if you have a clamp. Now let's put our screws in. And at first, I'm just putting them in lightly. I'm not going to tighten it down all the way. When this is all put together, have both sides done, then I'll tighten it down. All right, and as you can see, those are nice and solid, and they're not going anywhere. Now for these, this is where we're going to have the chain, and I'm going to need to drill a pilot hole for this. So I like to make just kind of a little punch mark. And in order to make sure I don't drill all the way through, I like this to use a little piece of masking tape. And that lets me know how deep I can go. Let's change that out. and we will drill our hole. See, when I get to the top of the masking tape, I know it's time to stop. Okay, I'm gonna put these in. You just screw it in. If it gets too tight, one thing you can do is you can use a screwdriver. Any kind of work. You just put it in there, and that'll give you the extra leverage to tighten it in. All right, so we have it turned over. We have these in. I've hooked the shackles on to the chains and the eye bolts, and now we're just gonna put in our bolts. I've used nails as kind of just a placeholder to dry fit it. So now I can just pop the nail and we can bolt these in. All right, we have all our shelves in. Chloe wanted her favorite verse painted right over here, so I'll get that painted on. Then we can do a finish coat on the top, and the desk will be done. Chloe wanted one of her favorite verses put on our desk. So what I have done is I cut it out on the Cricut machine and used some transfer paper. And I have found if you're going to paint something, it works best to use acrylic paint with the varnish. And I like to put one layer of varnish on first, and that just kind of helps seal the wood. And then you can paint over. So let's go ahead and peel this off as best I can. Okay. And that looks all done. When this is dried just a little bit more, I will peel it off. And when I get it peeled off, it'll probably need just a little bit of touch-up work. That's why I have a finer brush. And then we'll be ready to varnish, and this will be done. Okay, you can see a nice sheen all the way across the top, so it looks like it didn't miss any places, and this is done. Just has to dry.